One of the most evil and heinous things to ever come out of a liberal's mouth could be on its way for Canadians, and it's disastrous. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. We've talked about a lot of bananas policies on this channel, more than I'd like to. This is a channel that circulates around politics, and one that I often say, God, could we talk about something else? Could we ever talk about something that isn't politically linked? And the problem is, there's just too much craziness going on in the world right now to get away from it. And while, again, I would love to start the new year off by having happy news and happy tidings for people, to say that I come with glad tidings and glorious purpose, so to speak. The government has gone out of their way to bring up old discussions that are now new again in Canada, as universal basic income has been the hot button issue over the holiday season. But it's not just the Liberals that are talking about that, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. Universal basic income is this crazy, outlandish premise that if you look back to pandemic days, they talk about, well, there's other countries in the world that have a basic income. There's ways they've made it work. Good for them. That's not Canada. The problem with the universal basic income, and when you look at everything that happened over the pandemic with CERB, essentially a bunch of people, including the government employees, by the way, who were fired from Canada Revenue Agency, openly took CERB payments at $2,000 every 2 weeks, I believe it was, or $2,000 a month. I can't remember which one it was. Nonetheless, they took the open payments that the government just wanted to hand out and say, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about your job. Don't worry about being locked in your house. We're just going to print a bunch of money and give it to you for free. We're going to overflow the economy with new money that isn't chasing any goods. And before you know it, inflation's going to kick in and your lives are all going to suck. And you're not going to be able to do anything besides depend on the government. And that is exactly what a universal basic income is designed to do. If you look at the pitch for a universal basic income and what it could mean for the average Canadian, when you take a look at the middle class, anybody who works in a job that we'll say makes between $45,000 to $100,000 a year, where's the motivation to go to work if the government's just going to give you a bunch of money? What ties are going to be led to a universal basic income to encourage people to actually get up and go to work, especially when you're in the lower middle class range of a minimum wage job to $30,000 a year, we'll say? When we talk about a universal basic income, there's a lot of things that are going to go into it that, again, I've talked, and maybe we'll get into this on one of my live streams, which, by the way, do return this Sunday here on the channel at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time since the holidays are over. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit further, but a lot of what I think is going to happen if a universal basic income comes to pass. If you guys remember from the Stephen Harper days when there used to be child credits that were given to families for sporting programs, for after-school programs, credits for different things you were going to do with your children, those were eliminated and essentially rolled into one ball to give the Canada Child Benefit. I think what would happen with a universal basic income is you would see the Canada Child Benefit come to an end, and that money would just get rolled into UBI. Only UBI would be going to every citizen, not just parents. Now, I feel that much like the Universal Child Benefit, UBI would be conducted in the same fashion of what you get is based on how much you make. And that's, again, where we run into the problem. So if somebody has a job that pays $70,000 a year, they would get less UBI every month than somebody who maybe makes $20,000 a year. The same as it works with Canada Child Benefit. The problem with that is the person who's making $70,000 a year is going to work and working their tail off in order to pay taxes that generate a universal basic income. And you'd see the government maybe say, well, hey, we're going to eliminate employment insurance, because if you have a universal basic income, you don't need employment insurance anymore. Well, all they would do at that point is start charging you on your paychecks for a universal basic income tax. And if you're working and receiving universal basic income, you're just paying into the pot so to speak. At least that's the way I think it could go forward. I don't know. If you guys think of any other ways they'd do it, let me know in the comments down below. But the scary part of it is that when you look at, say, fast food restaurants, when you look at restaurants in general or retail, where would the motivation be for a 17-year-old kid to go get a job? Or we'll even say 18. If they said you don't get UBI until you're 18 years of age, what would be the motivation for an 18-year-old to get an education or go to their crappy job to gain experience while going to college, just when they can sit at home and get UBI for nothing? The biggest problem that comes into things like universal basic income is this is the start of digital currency. This is the start of government dependency. And this is what the government has planned for everybody is we're going to make you so dependent on us that we can take your house, we can take your cars, we can take everything. You'll own nothing and be happy. Corey Morgan, good friend of the channel, who was also in our compilation of How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom reading back in December. You guys should go check that out if you haven't yet. The UBI debate is much like the Liberal plan to tax the equity of primary residences. They keep floating the notion, then backing off when the backlash comes. They don't stop, though. This is where they really want to go. A UBI scheme would bankrupt the nation. Of course, he talks about their column in the Western Standard. I'm sorry, my column on UBI and people who thrive on government handouts hurt your feelings. So let's get into that. I've toyed with the notion of saying I believe that a spring election is headed our way. I think that if you watch the mannerisms of Pierre Poilievre, if you watch the things that are being discussed, the increase in interviews, Justin Trudeau going on different interviews, even though he was off in Jamaica over the Christmas break, I think what you're going to see here is UBI, much like Trudeau used COVID in the 2019 elections. I think UBI, sorry, the 2021 elections, not 2019. I think UBI would be their trump card. I think that when you remember Trudeau's mindless rants of should we tolerate these people, these misogynists, these racists, these unvaccinated people, you don't want to get on a train or a plane and sit next to an unvaccinated person. Justin Trudeau used fear to get himself even a minority government reelected in the last election. Much like when he was elected in 2015, he used the legalization of marijuana to get his vote into Parliament and his first majority government. Universal basic income, I think, is going to be what he pulls on the young voters if an election is called or when the time comes for a 2025 election. You're going to see him pull this out and say, hey, Pierre Poilievre wants to axe the tax, but you guys won't have to worry about the tax because I'm going to give you all free money. All you have to do is elect me back into Parliament. Controversial plan to guarantee Canadians a free pass is officially on the table after Universal Basic Income Bill officially works its way into Parliament. The Senate has passed Bill S-233, proposed by Senator Kim Pat, or Pate, again, if I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, and it's now being considered in committee, having passed second reading earlier this year. If it passes, it will go through 3 readings in the House before being passed up to the Governor General. The committee meeting was held in October, again in November, having passed through the second reading in April. So you see here, universal basic income is now coming to Canada. The Liberals believe there will be positive consequences of offering a UBI. More government dependency by Justin Trudeau as he leads Canada towards communism. And that's what it is. It's a red herring for communism. The idea has sparked a major debate in Canada, particularly since the pandemic, as some believe it's based on compassion, while others maintain, well, first off, the people who believe it's on compassion are the communists. They just want free money, while others maintain it's another way for the country to go more into debt and the government to have more control over people's lives, which it is. The details of how UBI would work still need to be determined, but if the bill passes through the Senate and the House of Commons, Finance Minister would be compelled to design, quote, a national framework to make possible the implementation of a basic income for all Canadians. This includes immigrants and refugees. There's the biggest staple of them all. How you open the doors to your country. Come on in, everybody. Free money. Free money. The minister must develop a national framework for the implementation of a guaranteed livable basic income program throughout Canada for any person over the age of 17, including temporary workers, permanent residents, and refugee claimants, the bill states. Here you can see their demographics. Not sure why UBI is trending, but it's a simple math calculation according to these people. Canada population is 40 million, approximately 80% are 20 years and up. There's the big determining factor, again, as to why I think this will be Justin Trudeau's trump card, should an election be called. 80% of those 40 million people, 20 years and up. So you've got that young vote. 32 million people. UBI of $1,500 a month times 32 million people is 48 billion per month. 42 billion. So she says 48 billion per month, and then 42 billion times 12 months is 504 billion. So she's off about 6 billion a month. But it still works out to 504 billion per year in new debt. UBI given to 5 million people at 2,000 per month is 10 billion per month, 120 billion per year, which is 25% of Canada's federal budget. What the actual F is that money coming from, or where is it coming from, and when productive Canadians already pay 50 to 60% of income to taxes? NDP MP Leah Gazin, has submitted an identical bill to the House of Commons, according to the CBC. There's a stigma about poor people and about assisting people, that we will give people a handout, but we won't give them a leg up out of poverty. The cost of such a program would be approximately $93 billion by 2025 to 2026, per estimates of the Parliamentary Budget Office, calculated based on Ontario's Basic Income Pilot Project, therefore the days of Premier Doug Ford in 2017 to 2018. Now, again, the problem here, and the article goes into more statements about statistics, but the basic fact, and the reason I won't get too much into it, is because this is ongoing. I will be covering it on the channel and talking about it more. Again, we'll discuss it to better length in the live streams, but essentially a universal basic income program, even if you took Canada's child tax and then rounded it into that, you're still racking up mass deficits and civilian dependency on the government. UBI is a massive problem, and one that we should all be definitely scared of. Again, especially if Justin Trudeau is going to pull that out of his war chest when it comes time for another election. Now, we have seen conservatives like Melissa Lantsman agree with things like a universal basic income, and again, that makes me scared for the future as to just what the Conservatives think a UBI would do. And I'd be curious to hear what Pierre Poilievre has to say on it, given that he was once a finance minister and is often talking about the debt of Canada and how he's going to, quote, bring it home. So I'd be very interested to see what Pierre has to say. Again, we'll be following this closely as things progress on the channel. Let me know what you guys think. Is it disastrous as I think it's going to be? Are things going to get better with a UBI? Doubtful. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to click that subscribe button and your bell for notifications, as once again, anytime we question almighty fancy socks, we get drowned in the algorithm and we get blacklisted on YouTube. So make sure to come back and check often for our content. Join us again this Sunday on the channel for our live streams at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, where we'll go over everything that happened this week, everything coming up in the week ahead, and have some Q&A and hear what you guys have to say in the comments. I look forward to talking to each and every one of you this upcoming Sunday here on the channel, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.